Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for watching Stay Free with Russell Brand. This week's going to be magnificent and spectacular. Not only will we give you the best insights we can possibly come up with, we're also going to entertain and beguile you. Today, I've got so many stories about vaccines that are mind-bending. I'm sort of, in a sense, it's inspired by Andrew Schultz's viral video where he just said, what have I got in my arm, man? But we've got some unique new reporting from Ashley Rinsberg on the LA Times' relationship with vaccines and how they propagate it. It's a brilliant story. You should follow Ashley, by the way. His details are on the screen and the link to his things in the description. I mean, like his Substack or whatever, however he wants to be followed. Hey, in a minute, I'll be talking to Jenner Furst about his film about Anthony Fauci. I feel like across the world, the pandemic issue is coming home to roost, even as Trump talks at the WEF, even as, contradictorily, he pulls out of the WHO. I feel that we're getting the reckoning that the pandemic warranted. The pandemic means, by its nature, it was across the world. What better way to understand and assess globalism than that? One phenomena that affected everyone simultaneously. I think that's why it was brought to an end. As I say, I'm going to be talking to Jenner Furst, brilliant filmmaker, about his Anthony Fauci film. What's interesting about him, by the way, is he was going to direct a hagiography about Fauci, saying, like every late night talk show, saying how fantastic Fauci is, but he's ended up making a film that shows the darkness of Anthony Fauci, and I know you're gonna love that. Before we get into talking to Jenner Furst, let's now look at Andrew Schultz talking about Fauci's pardon, because obviously if you've done nothing wrong, you don't need a pardon.
But Fauci took the pardon. Fauci could say, I don't want the pardon. I don't think I did anything wrong. Mm-hmm. But he took the pardon.
I don't blame anybody for taking a pardon.
I do, because now you're guilty. Because there are a lot of people that were on the January 6th committee that were offered a pardon, and they said no. They're like, I did my job. I was supposed to investigate this.
I didn't know that. That's good that some people on the Jan 6 committee rejected the pardon, because why do you need a pardon if you're innocent, which undermines the entire premise of these preemptive pardons, which I suppose is, oh no, when Trump comes in, he's going to vilify, condemn and lock up his political enemies. We're going to give you preemptive pardons to protect you. That's the only defence for giving out these pardons. Otherwise, it looks like you needed these pardons because you've done something wrong. There are so many things that we see said now that would have been inconceivable at the height of the pandemic, and for good reason, because now we know that one of his last acts in office, in addition to pardoning Fauci, was for Joe Biden to give Moderna a near $600 million deal. Most of us are deeply cynical about the relationship between Big Pharma, the state, and the media. The fact is, though, that it isn't just in the issue of vaccines or even the pandemic more broadly, where the relationship between the state, a large corporation, and the media are the defining triumvirate of relationships that control all of our lives. That's why the pandemic was so important. That's why I'll be talking to Jenner Furst in a little while about his film about Anthony Fauci. Firstly, this is some reporting by Ashley Rinsberg. You can follow him at Substack. There's his details. This is fascinating, if you ask me, because what I like about this is, let me just show you this. During the pandemic, the LA Times was extremely favourable and supportive in the way they reported on the pandemic, generally demanding compliance from most of us and supporting government sort of edicts, if not mandates. Let's get into the story. A pharma billionaire has turned one of America's largest newspapers, the Los Angeles Times, into a pawn in his vaccine empire. Patrick Soon-Shiong, the South African-born billionaire physician, bought the LA Times in 2018 for $500 million otherwise. I mean, the LA Times is not a very good newspaper, but we're talking millions here, not like $500. At the time, he claimed it was about preserving journalism's role in a free society. But what he's done with the paper suggests something else entirely. People have got this incredible tendency to pretend that what they're doing is beneficial. I'm buying the LA Times. Why? To help society. What are you actually doing it for? Well, you'll find out. Soon-Shiong also owns Immunity Bio. You only bought Immunity Bio to help humanity. Stop claiming everything you do is to help humanity when it appears that you've got more nefarious ends intended. A biotech company developing the next generation vaccines, including a universal booster for COVID. It's not enough that we all have to get COVID, chaps. Now the universe has to have one. It's a hybrid vaccine combining RNA and DNA technologies designed to stimulate both antibodies and T cells. In short, Sun Xiong is deeply invested in the vaccine game and is using the LA Times to push that agenda. On one hand, we had incredible censorship. We all remember that. True claims around vaccine injury were censored. True concerns about an incorrectly or inadequately trialled vaccine were censored. People questioning government policy was censored. Meanwhile, ludicrously and outrageously, we saw the amplification of the government's message through even the LA Times, and now we're beginning to understand why, powerfully amplified and pressed the government's agenda. Just think, you've probably forgotten just how much propaganda there was. We saw Stephen Colbert dressed as vaccines. We saw the late night James Corden show, people dancing in the streets celebrating Fauci. We saw like hip hop songs, gay songs, country songs, Christian songs. John Legend had a go, didn't he? Like people showing you in public, there you go. Right, so they were clearly trying to significantly warp our perspective of vaccines, and this is a very specific example of how that went down. Of course, we're going to be looking at the fact that right up to the minute he left office, Biden was still funneling money towards Moderna, and British Al Fauci, I call him that, the British Fauci, was Chris Whitty, and Chris Whitty had admitted that the vaccine deployment was a 100% political decision. So in the end, together, what you get is an assessment of how globalism and global corruption in particular works. One centralized edict, legitimize it through crisis, measures of control, opportunity for profit. Lovely little gig if you can get it. Let's crack on with this dude. Under his ownership, we're talking about Sun Xiong, under his ownership, the Times became one of the most hardline pro-vaccine voices in the media. In 2021, the editorial published pieces like, "It's time to get tough on vaccine evaders." Let's have a look at that. Look at that. This one's bring the mandates, yeah, and get tough. And what's this one here? "There's no absolute right to refuse vaccination." Would the LA Times, where do they stand on abortion? I know it's common to draw the comparison between bodily autonomy when it comes to vaccine and bodily autonomy when it comes to abortion. And it's extraordinary that one half of the political conversation is dedicated to the idea that you should be forced to have vaccines, but you should never be prevented from terminating a pregnancy. Those are, I don't know, you can explain to me in the comments and chat how those are contradictory concepts. But what's fascinating is to see how an organisation like the LA Times, though most of us know it's absolute codswallop, is still somewhat regarded as a significant LA legacy media asset. So, bring on the COVID vaccination mandates. The paper even argued there's no absolute right to refuse vaccination. They were relentless in promoting vaccines and vilifying those who hesitate. Also, by the way, saying there's no absolute right to deny vaccinations, that's a very strong position to take. You're saying the state should be able to control you right down to that level. And that kind of exposes statism, doesn't it? Generally speaking, you would accept that if you're staying in America, or I've got to abide by American rules, I've got to drive at the speed limit. But you will, if you analyse it, you will see great state encroachment over all your actions and activities. The agenda of the state is control. And in the end, in pursuit of control, they will legitimise any measures necessary and will potentially participate in crisis, if not welcome crisis. Let's not assume malevolence where incompetence will do. They will certainly exploit various crises. If you're watching us on X right now or on YouTube, remember we stream primarily on Rumble Premium. And the reason for that is simple. Rumble Premium is an ad-free experience where you get additional content. There's a link in the description telling you how to get it. If you're a Locals member, you continue to get all of our content, but you'll get even more content if you become a member on Rumble. Now let's have a quick word from one of our partners. Do you like taxes? I don't. That's why you should engage Tax Network USA. Are you overwhelmed with back taxes or unfiled returns? Well, get ready, because since COVID relief ended, the IRS hired 20,000 new evil demons, I meant tax agents, proposing millions of pay-up notices for 2025. If you're worried about IRS collection tactics, you don't have to face them alone. Tax Network USA is the nation's premier tax relief firm and has negotiated over $1 billion in tax relief for clients. Our services include penalty forgiveness, hardship programs, where you might not have to repay anything until your tax debt expires, and offer in-compromise solutions for lump sum settlements, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million. Our experts are ready to assist you. Let's face it, no one wants to give money to the government. We don't trust the government. What are they going to do with it? A war? Lock us in our houses? Why is there still potholes in the road? Damn you, government! Even if you're behind on taxes due to missing personal or business records, Tax Network USA can guide you through the process. Tax season is long over, and for the IRS, it means it's collection season. Handling IRS matters without professional help is risky. Protect your financial security with guidance from Tax Network USA. Our experts provide strategic advice on reducing or eliminating your tax debts. To schedule a complimentary consultation, call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/brand. Don't let the IRS's aggressive tactics control your life. Empower yourself with Tax Network USA support and take charge of your financial future. Visit tnusa.com/brand. Thanks for joining me today for Stay Free with Russell Brand. We're in the middle, of talking about Soon Shiong, the proprietor of the LA Times, who used his position to propagate a variety of messages. In a minute, I'm going to be talking to Jenner Furst, distinguished American documentary filmmaker and producer, who's made a fantastic film called Thank You, Dr. Fauci. And I think it might be a sarcastic thank you at this stage. Now, listen to this. You would imagine that vacillations in perspective would not be common, but they certainly are. Soon Shiong made waves on a podcast where he praised Bobby Kennedy, a longtime critic of COVID vaccines. I mean, this is one of the extraordinary vicissitudes of the recent election. The idea that Bobby Kennedy, who was once a person that I'd have been nervous of talking about because of his position on autism and vaccines, which we're now going to have to recognise there isn't significant clinical data to prove that there is no connection between autism and vaccines, because what they always say is there's never been a proper fight. Anyway, what I'm sort of saying is that Bobby Kennedy is now a confirmation pending in a position of significant power. So notice that old Soon Shiong and his ilk are willing to bend the knee temporarily. Let me know in the comments and chat how surprised you've been to see various billionaires and tech oligarchs lining up beside Trump, showing in a way that there are no real principles behind their positions. It's simply expedient positions to take in order to get into positions of domination. Before we continue with the LA Times article, this is a brilliant conversation between a CNBC news anchor and former FDA commissioner, now Pfizer board member, Scott Gottlieb. See how these things work? 1 minute, you're running the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and the next minute, you are working at Pfizer.